Okay, so what we have here is a bathroom that I shot recently, and in this tutorial I'm going to go over the airbrush and some of its different uses. So talk about the airbrush. What you want to use is over in this toolbar or dock or whatever they call it. You use the brush tool. There's 3 different brushes you can use: the brush, pencil, or the color replacement tool. And what I'm talking about specifically is the top option, the brush tool. So within the airbrush, you have all of these different types of airbrushes. The ones that I use the most is the color, and sometimes when I'm typing out tutorials or talking about descriptions in my photos, I'll talk about the color replacement tool. There's 2 different things I may be referring to. I'm trying to be better about referring to them separately. So when I use this, I'm trying to be good about calling this my color replacement airbrush. The other tool that I use a lot, which I think is the true color replacement tool, is if you go up to Image, Adjustments, and Replace Color. I use both of these methods pretty frequently, but for this tutorial I'm talking about the airbrush color replacement tool. So I use this almost on every single photo that I do. The level that I use it varies depending on whether it's going in my portfolio, whether it's a good client, whatever, but I'll get into that later. The other one I use, well, not as much, is the normal brush, and that's what I'm going to be using today. And I use color burn a lot for just popping certain areas of color. But so for right now, I'm going to talk about the normal brush. When I'm using this, I always keep my opacity and my flow pretty low, because I just want to do it really gently. And what I'm going to show you here is I have some flare in this photo right here on the vanity. I think it's just dirt that's causing it. I'm just too lazy to clean my lens. But anyway, so we're going to zoom into this area that we're going to fix. If this was a larger space, I would either use the patch tool or the clone tool to fix it, but since there's a huge color shift in this, there's a lot of noise, it's not really the greatest sampling area, I'm just going to go ahead and use the brush. So I have my opacity and my flow set at about 30% or so. I'm never all that precise when I do it. And what I'm going to do, well, first I'm actually going to use the color airbrush just to even out the color in here. So I know that this is pretty much the right color, so I'm going to kick my color up. Whenever you use the color airbrush, I always go up to 100% for opacity and flow. You don't have to do that. I just like getting it done quickly and in one stroke. But a lot of people use it with lower opacity and flow. You'll just have to do more passes on it. So I'm going to sample an area where I know the color is correct, and then I'm just going to brush over it. And you can see that it's kind of a greenish tint right now, so now it's going back to the correct kind of reddish tint that it's supposed to be. I'm just going to go ahead and get all of it while I'm at it. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the normal brush and go way back down to, I don't know, I usually go in anywhere between 15 and 30% depending on what I'm doing. So you can see there's a little bit of a gradient here in the wood. It gets darker as you go lower. So I'm going to sample from this lower bit right now just to start things off. And just very broad brush strokes. I'm just going to go ahead and do this entire area. The reason you want to keep your opacity really low in doing this, I don't know if you can really tell, but when you use the normal brush, you're going to lose all detail. It's just like taking a paintbrush and just painting. So you'll want to be kind of careful when you have areas like this. There's a line there, and if I was to paint over it, you'd completely lose all of that detail. So you want to be really careful about using the normal airbrush. Zoom out. That's starting to look a little better. You can see that the line of the circle is getting a little more faint, so I'm just going to do a few more passes. That's good enough for government work. So now the middle section is taken care of. So now what I'm going to do to make it just easier on me, since there's a distinct line there and I want to keep that detail, I'm actually just going to select the area. Oops. And now I don't have to worry about being as precise when I'm using my airbrush. I can just do whatever's in that selected area. So we're going to go ahead and just do the really big one. And there you go. Now you can see my line's really harsh there. If I was thinking, I would have feathered out the selection a little bit, but I'm just going to go and go over that a little bit. Does that look bad? Yeah, that looks pretty bad. All right, so I'm going to actually undo everything that I just did. There we go. And okay, so now we're back to just the selection. I'm going to feather out the selection a little bit. So you go up to Select, Modify. Since it's such a small area, I'm only going to feather it out by 5 pixels. And so hopefully that will prevent us from having such a hard line there. Let's see, go back to the brush. And 2 passes. And there you go. You can see that's a much less harsh line there. So I'm not going to do it now, but you would do the same thing to this side. And now when you look at it, the flare is gone. This is a really good technique to do for windows as well. You can't really tell on this one because I've already fixed it, but the windows here, they went nuclear on me, which meant I lost all of the window pane. This was completely blown out. And so by doing that same, using your polygonal lasso tool to select the areas and then just airbrushing over really lightly, you can really pull back a lot of the detail that you lose sometimes when your windows go just too much of a blast of light. But I will actually go over that in a different tutorial. So that is your normal airbrush. I hope that helps.